Every day there is a crime committed within the United States. Investigators take on the heavy task of identifying the victim of a crime and the criminal who caused it. Crime scene investigation is not always straightforward and easy to investigate, which prolongs the process further. Science has presented amazing advancements which contribute heavily into the investigative side of our society. Today, I'll explain the process that investigators go through to ensure proper investigation of evidence, apprehension of suspect, and finally the conviction of the offender. The first thing we are going to go over is investigation of the crime scene. This will be looking for clues, such as fingerprints. We're going to dust anything that potentially has been touched by the victim or the suspects or multiple suspects. Then it's going to be identifying unknown fluids in the crime scene as well. This is where they're going to use a science called biospectroscopy. It is the biospectroscopic examination of specimens of living tissue or bodily fluids. This is where you're going to be able to identify if it's even sweat, blood, anything that can come off our body in a liquid form. That is anything that they're looking for. This has opened up new and very good advancements because it's not destructive of evidence. It's very quick and accurate, and it helps with the investigation go faster. The next thing they do look for is DNA testing. This is where we're going to be testing any evidence that we found, running fingerprints, but sometimes there's not always a body at the scene, which is very unfortunate. But they have developed this science called mitochondrial DNA. It is where you take the mitochondrial DNA that is only passed from mother to offspring, you take the chromosome out of it and test it. And so once you have a potential victim, you then can go to the mother and test her DNA as well to find a match. As we're moving forward, we're going to move on to processing potential evidence. This is going to be going over laboratory procedures. This is going to be the physical separation of areas where examination and anything we've touched is like completely bagged off and put in little jars, label them correctly so no cross-contamination can happen, because if evidence is corrupted or contaminated, it is no longer viable in court. So then once they're getting to their findings, they're testing everything, they feel like they have an adequate suspect, they're then going to tell peers and they're going to go over it further to just make sure everything correlates, everything goes correctly, nothing has changed. And so finally, when they feel like they have an accurate reading, they have an accurate suspect, they're going to go to the police with their findings. So this is going then into the interrogation and conviction part. So this is where the police are going to put a warrant out for their arrest, and they're going to try and track down the suspect and bring them in for questioning. Questions can go such as, where were you on the night of the crime? Do you know the person personally? How do you know them? They're even going to ask simple questions of like daily activities. They want to get a good alibi out of the person because they're not trying to convict the wrong person. They want to convict the right person so they don't have to later then exonerate someone because there was a misreading, there was a mistake. They don't want any mistakes. So they're going to interrogate them for potentially hours. They're looking for an adequate confession. They're looking for the person to say, yes, I actually did this. So then once the person finally gives an adequate confession, they're then going to go into the conviction part, which is where they're going to be served and they're going to go to a trial where they're going to be read their charges. They're going to be told, everything's going to be laid out for them, and the juror is going to hear their juror is going to hear their side, the police side. They're going to hear the whole story, so it's non-biased, hopefully non-biased. So once the verdict finally comes and they are potentially served with it, they will sometimes be put up for bail or bond, so they don't have to sit in jail before their trial even begins. And so in conclusion, the criminal investigation is a long and lengthy process. It really is. And it's not easy, and it's very hard because a lot of people feel it's very unjust sometimes. But luckily, some of the things that we have brought forward in advancements has made it easier for us to get an accurate conviction and apprehend the correct suspect. and appease the victims and their families. Investigators follow very strict rules at how to follow and process evidence correctly without cross-contaminating and corrupting evidence for the court. They also have to follow strict rules when interrogating. You can't feed someone information. You can't feed someone like a confession and make them confess by threatening or anything. By following the strict processes, investigators can be confident about the correct perpetrator of the crime.